Now, it's time for that reading from the book, and the chapter is called The City of Rigor Mortis. This is an abridged version which is also edited for spoilers. Zip, TM and DM are about to enter the vision space at the city mortuary. They each pause for a moment, took their pins. As they pulled them out, the blood formed a droplet on their fingertips until gravity took over and the drops fell to the ground. Before they did so, the three were in the mortuary, or at least in the vision space of the mortuary. Who could tell? They'd never been there before. They looked up into the cold, darkened space of a dreary room full of gloom, partially lit by the blue glow of argon lamps. Zip could feel the coldness. Deck was chilled. This was the hyperreal. They all, in that initial shock of entering this realm, exhaled deeply, their breath leaving the visible evidence of life in the deadly atmosphere of this rigged place. They looked around. The room was about 8 or 9 meters across and maybe 30 meters in length as it disappeared into the darkness. Then they looked at one another and were shocked. Hey, the others. How come? Started DM. Zip finished his sentence. We can see each other as ourselves, not our attributes. Another bloody mystery without the time to find an answer, said TM. Right in front of them, they could see 2 mortuary slabs, placed lengthways up the room and with a central corridor going through to a low partition wall. On the slabs were 2 cadavers. The bodies showed signs of experimentation. DM stopped in his tracks. My GD. What are they doing to the bodies? To their left on the slab was a woman partially skinned, her left leg and arm stripped of the epidermis. To the right, even worse, a man with his face skinned. There was a line drawn in front of the ear, down the side of his neck, across the collarbone and around his temples, forming the boundary when they peeled his chest. The veins, muscles and tendons were exposed. DM stared hard and long over the bodies. Why would you be stripping a dead body of its flesh? They moved on, breathing deeply as they passed 2 gruesome corpses in sealed plexiglass sarcophagi. Their skin looked diseased. If that shocked them, then the next room would prove difficult to stomach. As their heads poked around the opening, TM and DM moved around the corner and slid up with their backs to the wall. To the left and right were rows of LCD screens, glowing in the darkened room, 5 screens on each side. The last one on the left was malfunctioning and agitated flicker. The guys moved onto the screens nearest them. They could see that and could now hear Zip's mysterious noise more clearly. TM turned to Zip. Well, there's only one thing to do, I suppose. The screen, DM did the same. A low light came on inside the plexiglass case. DM gasped and fell onto his backside. Whoa! What the? TM stood back from his case and Zip held onto his sarcophagus. DM whispered across the room, Mine's got a skinned body in it. The woman's twitching. Ours too, came the reply from Zip. TM was still unable to speak. Zip and tapped the remaining screens. The low lights came on. All the cases had bodies in them and their limbs were moving robotically. The bodies repeated movements, some more unnerving than DM's woman, whose eye kept opening and moving around, looking at him. Zip and TM then closing. Another body just kept opening and closing his mouth. TM's cadaver was laid on his side and flexing his arm back and forth. They could speak of no scientific reason for this. TM was receiving a charge to a different part of its body through metal needles inserted into his spine. The others were treated similarly for controlling their legs, necks, eyelids, and jaw. The insurgents were all astounded at this room of horrors. TM spoke up. Have you seen this before, Zip? Anything like this? You spend your time around this place. He looked around. Have you had any triggers take you momentary flashes, and that's all? Like subliminal images flashing up, invading my space, and not the other way around, but without any context. Almost like hauntings. Zip and DM tapped on a few more screens, and DM walked the room. At the end of the row was the small anomaly of the crackling screen. This little girl hasn't been skinned at all, Zip was relieved to say. DM moved across from the screen to the case. On the bottom of it was the property of the Everlasting Project. I've seen these guys around the project. They arrive when someone has died. They pay whoever's left of the family for the research rights to use the body. Zip knew something of this process. They're called residual rights, and I think... TM interrupted. Okay, but aren't people told that their loved ones will live on through donating their organs for transplants? I bet they don't know the truth about this shit. Girl slash cabinet. Every now and then her body would judder. Her eyes twitched and her chest would heave as she took a breath. Whoa, that's freaking me out. DM's eyes were fixed upon her slight frame, naked save for a pair of blue surgical knickers. He leant forward, transfixed by her sweetness, and unwittingly bumped his forehead against the case. Ow! He rubbed his head, moved back, then scrolled down the screen. It flickered. /0822. They're really personal in their care of the dead, aren't they? He scrolled down further. Oh, frack, she had AIDS. Disposal date is tomorrow. DM moved closer to the cabinet. The girl appeared to develop another impulse as she convulsed. Her face smacked against the glass. They all stepped back in shock from their cabinets. Her face hit the plexiglass again and again. And now, I think, over to Cols.